Hey guys, Figurecraft here, and today we're going to be going over shipment 6 of Titanic by Agora models and what all I went through to get through shipment 6. So I'm just getting the parts here. Let me move these, sorry about that, let me move these boxes out of the way. These are the leftover boxes from shipment 6. Them in their box. And this right here is how far we got when we completed shipment 6. So, let me find me a pair of tweezers. Now point at some things. Okay. So, the first thing that we did with shipment 6 was issue 27. And issue 27 basically focused us on the first or the second engine. It focused us on putting together the second engine. So with this one, let me look here, see what side we was building. Okay. So with issue 27, we basically put together this side of the second engine. We focused all on this side. We focused on putting the one side of the pillars in. Basically, we focused on this whole side of the engine right here. And then we also focused on these parts right in here. Let me turn the wheel. Holding it sideways, we get caught up in gangways. You don't want to do that. Basically right here, these little pieces that's in here, those, we focused on putting those, building them but not putting them on yet. That's what all we did in issue 27 was just those. And then after we got off of issue 27, basically after the end of 27, we had that much right there built. And then we went from 27 to 28, and 28 started focusing us on the other side of the engine. So basically we built the other side you see here, and we got these columns put onto these cylinders, but it didn't tell us to fasten them together yet. And then the last thing that we done was put the piston rods together, but not stick them in yet. So that's what all we did in 28, and when we got through with issue 28, we had that built. When we got to 29, it made us build the crankshaft and putting the piston rods in place. So when we got to issue 29, we focused on putting this crankshaft in place. We focused on fastening the crankshaft to the small piston rods that's in between the engines. We basically focused on snapping those on, which is right here in the instructions. We focused on that first. After we got them snapped on, then it told us to take the two pieces of engine and snap the two pieces of engine together. But if you watch the video, I built mine completely different from what the instructions told me to do, because it's much easier the way I did it. But we worked on fastening the two together. And then after the two were fastened together, then it tells you to put these tops on. Putting the cylinder heads on and the valves. What are they? Distribution valves? Or I think they're distribution valves, because the exhaust valves are the antenna looking things. Let me make sure, I don't want to tell you wrong. Yeah, distribution valves. Cylinder heads and distribution valves went on. And then after you get that, then it tells you to focus on this part right here, which is this long section. And you basically clip those onto the long section. Then you clip it from the bottom, and then you clip it to the side of the engine and glue it in place. And then you have that much done. Then it tells you to finally put the bottom supports to hold the crankshaft in place. Basically, these gray things right here. That gray thing, it tells you to put that on. And then the gray thing right here at the back behind the flywheel, it tells you to put that on. And then the last thing it tells you to do is to put the flywheel on. Which I built mine completely different from what it told me. And then by the end of that stage, you will have this much done. That's what we did in issue 29. In issue 30, we basically still focused on the second engine. Yeah, we focused on the second engine. We basically focused on putting the base to the second engine together. So we put these two base pieces on and got them out of the way. That's what it had us to do. And the last thing that it had us to do was to put this end cap at the back of our second engine. The first engine doesn't have the end cap yet, but it will have that in, not the next shipment we're working on right now, but the next shipment I'll get in the mail, which will be shipment 8. I got shipment 7, I got to work on it, and it also tells you to put those antenna things on the top of your engine. I'm leaving mine off because I've seen so many people break theirs. So I'm not putting mine on, but I'll show you. It wants you to stick those antennas on top of the engine, which I'm leaving mine off. Those antenna things are the exhaust valves. And then by the end of that step, you would have that right there completed. That would end off your issue 30. Set that big old stack of books over there because we'll go to the other stack of books that we have. Just let me get them. I gotta get them out of my little carrying case because I've been studying them. But when you get to issue 31, basically you will be finished with you'll finish with the second engine for right now. They don't want you to do nothing else to it. They move you to the first engine after that, which I'm not going to take that off because I got that stuck down. It's not, you know, screwed down to the deck, but that little pipe is holding it on right now. But anyway, let me get that off. Now, talk you through what we did in 31. Okay, in 31, the first thing that you had to do was identify that you're working on the correct engine. And the way to identify the engines apart from one another was you had one where you put the end cap on it, and then the other one didn't have an end cap. It was the one without the end cap that you needed. Your first job that they had you to do, which was a pain in the butt, and it is a pain in the butt too, putting it on the second engine. But the first thing that they had you to do, I'm going to have to show you from the other side because it's got so much stuff on it now. The first thing that they had you to do was put these little walk gangways onto your engine in between each column. These little walk gangways you see right here, little steps in the middle, they have you to put those on first, and those are a pain in the butt to get on the engine and make sure that they stay upright. That was the first thing that they have you to do, is put them gangways on. The second thing that they have you to do is focusing down here. They tell you to put this little wheel on, and these little parts to the floor of the engine, and then this little box. They focus you on putting on that next. Then after you get that done, then they focus you on putting a pipe above all that detail right here. This pipe that goes straight across right here. They have you to do that. And then after you've done that, they'll have you to put this curved pipe right here over top of that pipe that you just put in. So they'll have you to focus on that. Then after you have done that, they tell you to put this big, huge pipe into the side of your engine. So you'll put that in after that. And I didn't use glue on this. That was a very snug fit to get in there. Did not have to use glue. And then they have you to put this pipe on right here, which on mine, I've got the issue of it being bent, and I'm waiting for a replacement if they ever send the replacement. But when I last talked to them, they said they was going to send it, but that was about, gosh, almost about a week and something ago. And then I told them that, you know, they said that it's going to be shipped out within that week. That week went by. Contacted them again, asking them the situation on it. They said they're going to hand it over to their warehouse team. So I don't know where it's going to from there. But hopefully we get that replacement pipe. If not, we'll just have to figure out a way to straighten it up. Maybe later on I can get a pipe to glue it to it or something. Then after that, they have you to focus on the other side of the engine, which is on this side. And then they tell you to take this two pipe. You see that pipe and that pipe right there. These two are linked together. They have you to put that big pipe on next. And then after that big pipe goes on, they tell you to put this little flimsy pipe in between those two pipes. And this thing is a pain in the neck to get in there. In my last video that I posted up about the build, you'll see that that pipe's popped out on me, and it took me forever to get that pipe popped back in place. After you have done that, you're still on this side right here. Then they tell you to take this pipe right here and put it in place, making sure that that curve faces that side. And then back here, that curve faces back here to the back of the engine. So they have you to do all that. And that right there will basically end off your issue 31. You'll be to there when you get off of issue 31. And then issue 32, which is the last one that we worked on for shipment 6, is putting more details to the engine. So working on the first engine again, the first thing that you do when you get to issue 32 is you build this part right here. You build this part right here, which is called the auxiliary engine. You build the auxiliary engine, you put all this together, and then you glue the auxiliary engine to your main engine. So you glue that in place. Then after the auxiliary engine has been glued in place, they then tell you to put the gangway on. The long gangway right here, they tell you to put this long gangway in place. This has been glued in by the 4 square pegs that it has into the side of the engine. I didn't even bother gluing the bottom of the pegs of the steps because it just snaps in there and stays. You don't really need to glue that. So you've done that. And then, turning to the next page, they take you and they turn you around to the other side of the engine. And then they want you to put the vapor separator on the engine, which is over here. This thing right here is called a vapor separator. And in my last video, when I was pushing this in place, the only part that has been glued on this is the very back peg that goes back in there. That's only been the peg that's been glued. The rest of it has not been glued. And when I was pressing that in, that is when this little annoying pipe I was talking about snapped out on me. And it took me forever to get that thing back in there. But after the vapor separator gets on there, then they tell you to go to the other side of the engine again. And then they want you to basically take these two pieces. They want you to take this piece, and they want you to take this little curve piece, this little curve pipe, elbow pipe, and glue these two together and then snap it onto the engine. I would highly advise to put this piece onto the engine first, and then put the elbow pipe on after those two, after you've got this onto the engine, and after you have got the exhaust valve piece onto the engine. Then apply this pipe. It makes it so much easier, and you can keep it straight. and it won't bend on you. You can keep it straight, and you just glue it in on both sides. That's a much easier way of doing it. I would highly advise you doing that method. And then your next part that they have you to put in is your reversing gear. So they would tell you to put this reversing gear right here into place and gluing it by the bottom of the peg into the engine. I have done that. I've glued it by the very bottom of the peg and put it into the engine. So that's on there now. And then after you get through doing all of that, you will have completed your very first reciprocating engine. And on mine, it still turns. I can still turn the engine. So there's nothing sticking. We're still turning good. After you've done that, then they have you to focus on your first pump to the engine room floor. So they will basically tell you to take the bottom half of the pump that's on here, and then they would have you to put these two square pieces onto the top, and then this little piece in the middle. I would highly advise screwing the two pieces onto the engine, or not engine, screwing the two pieces onto the base of the pump first, then put this little piece in the middle. If you don't, you are taking a risk of, while you're screwing those pieces in, them twisting, possibly breaking that piece that you got to stick in the middle. I'll try to get a focus up on it. That little piece right there, that little doodad, I'm going to get this off so I can show you. That little doodad right there, you take a risk of breaking that off, of these two right here twisting as you're screwing them down to the pump. Twisting around and just snapping it right off. And I'll show you in the book. Let me set this down. I'll get my book up. I'll show you in the book what I'm talking about. That way I don't confuse you. So zooming out. There's your piece right there. That's the piece that's got two pegs at the bottom. They want you to put that in the middle first. Which, following the instructions right there, they want you to put that piece in the middle first. And then attach these two pieces down with the screws. And knowing good and well that they can twist around. And if they twist around, you will snap that. So I would highly advise screwing them two pieces down first. After they're screwed down first, check the orientation of the part and then glue it down. Which is what I did. Made it so much easier, and it just makes a lot more sense. After that, they have you to build this part right here, which is this cylinder looking piece. And then you will take this valve with a pipe on it, put those two together, and then you would glue those two down to this part. After you have got them done, it would have you to focus on this part right here, this little valve piece at the top, and then this little pipe that curves. And I'll show you what I'm talking about so I don't lose you. Let me get the book again. Get it to the page. I'll have to tilt you up a bit. Hang on a minute here. Let me zoom you out. Right there. This pipe right here would have you to build those valve piece, that first, and then they would have you to basically glue it down to your pump. Which, when you glue it down, make sure that it, stays as straight as you can get it, because when you fasten it down to the engine room floor, you don't want to end up with a crooked pipe. So after you have all that built, let me get this book out of the way and I'll take you back to the pump. Sorry, so there's just so much for me to go over with you. After you get all that done, then they would tell you to basically, it also tells you too to take this little, hang on a minute here, let me zoom in. This is some small delicate pieces. They would also tell you to take this valve right here, this little gauge, and glue it down. I wouldn't advise gluing that down until this has fully been fastened down to the engine room floor, which is what I did. I fully screwed this down to the engine room floor, and underneath it, it's fastened down with one. It's fastened down with one EP screw right there. And then after I got that down, then I made sure to get this pipe into the slot on the engine room floor. Made sure that the pipe was staying straight. Then I fully screwed it down to where it was tight. And then I put that little pressure gauge onto the pump. And then after that, your last part to do on this side will be to put this gauge into the floor. And that's been glued down with a Loctite Ultra Gel Control Super Glue. After that, they will basically flip you around to the other side of the pump. And then they would start you off by telling you to take this part right here, which is the lubrication pump. They would have you to take this, put it in the slot, make sure it stays straight, and then you would screw this down to the floor. And let me get this held to where it won't fall. Okay. So going over on the other side, they would have you to put it in with the FP screw, which is right here. And you see it's got a key shape. All these have key shapes, so that way you can get them the right way. But they would have you to basically screw that down to the floor. After that has been screwed down to the floor, then they would tell you to put this little tiny piece and glue it in place. That is a very, very tiny piece. After that, you would put down this part right here and glue it in place. And then your last part you will do is this little stem looking thing right here. Let me get you up right there. This little stem piece right here, you would basically set that down to the floor and glue it in place. But you would get that on there. And then after you get all that on there, that right there is the detail that you are left with on your first side of the engine room floor. And then they would tell you to take some tweezers and push this little pipe into the slot right there in the engine, which later on I will use the tweezers and just, you know, grab it like that and press it forward and glue that in place when this engine is being fully attached down to the floor. But on mine, I can still turn the flywheel. I don't have no problems turning the flywheel, and it'll go both ways. So we're still turning on mine. I've been being very careful, making sure that everything is working as I've been building. So there we go. But that's how much we have accomplished in shipment 6. In shipment 7, we are focusing on the other engine and the other pumps on the other side of the engine room floor, and the turbine engine, the gearbox, the motors, everything that's going to be operating these engines. Basically, by the end of next month, which will be March the 31st, this engine will be working. I'm just taking my time building mine. But basically, after you get all that built, you are left with this process right here. But that's going to do it for this Pack 6 review update. I hope y'all enjoyed, and I hope y'all are doing safe during these troublesome times. You all have a blessed one, and when I come back, we'll be going over some more McDonald's toys. And next Friday, we will be doing issue 33, which will be working on the details of the second engine. But until then, you all have a blessed one, and goodbye.